Hi there, I'm Chris, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to use Athlete Monitoring's training scheduling. This is one of the core components of Athlete Monitoring. To start off, I'm going to log in as coach and explain how the scheduling works. Open the options for the team you'd like to work with and click on the Trainings button. This is the training calendar. This shows you all training sessions for the selected teams, athletes, and date range. By default, we see a range from yesterday to 1 week from today. The default view is for 7-day rows, and this can be changed to 3 days, 31 days, or 1 day. The 31-day view displays 7-day rows, but without the individual times, which makes it much easier to display a full month without it being so cluttered. Let's stick with 7-day rows for now. You can change the selected teams and athletes by clicking here, selecting whatever teams and athletes combination you like, and then clicking the green reload button here. If you'd like to change the date range, simply select a new starting and/or end date and click the reload button again. Here I've selected to see 2 weeks from today rather than just 1, and if we scroll down, all of these days are now in our view. You can change which types of sessions you want to see by switching between all, which is the default, planned, and unplanned at the top here. Planned sessions are ones that you plan in advance and then fill in data later on. Unplanned entries are cases where an athlete recorded a session that wasn't scheduled in the calendar. Let's leave this on all for now. Now that you understand the layout, let's create a session. There are 2 ways to do this. You can click the Add Session button at the top right here, which will take you to the New Session screen, and then specify a date and time for your session, like so. Or if we go back, you can simply click on the cell for the day and time you want to use. So we can see here, this one is for Saturday, the 18th at 6 a.m. Let's just click on that, and it will bring up the Add Session screen with the time and date already filled in. If you'd like to be more precise with the time the session starts, once you're on this screen, you can change it in 15-minute intervals. So let's set this to 6:15. At the top, you can set whatever teams and athletes you'd like to participate in this session. I'm just going to schedule the entire First Tigers team, which is already selected because it was already selected on the previous screen. Whatever you've got selected on the previous screen should be what's selected when this window comes up. You can change the date by clicking on it and selecting a new one, though right now I'm happy with what we've got. The next option is the activity, and I'm going to select conditioning speed. This is the conditioning category and the speed activity. If there isn't an option that works for you here, you can scroll to the bottom and select other, or you can create your own activity in the team settings, which I'll show you how to do in a few minutes. For now, I'm just going to set it back to conditioning speed. Now you can select the planned duration of this training session, which goes in 5-minute intervals, and I'm going to select 45 minutes. Now simply select the planned difficulty or RPE for the session. I'm expecting this one to be somewhat hard but not too difficult. You can add any comments you have for the athletes in this text box here, or up to 3 attachments here. This is very simple. You simply select Select File and pick the file you'd like to add. I'm going to cancel this as I don't have anything for it right now. This is very useful, however, if you'd like to upload something like a new football play. Now let's just click Add Session. We'll see this little saved window pop up to know that it did save, and everything defaults back to its original values, pretty much empty, so that you can add a new session if you'd like. I'm not going to do that, however. I'm just going to click Close. And now we'll see here at 6 a.m. on June 18th, we've got our new training session. You're also able to import and export your training schedule. To export, click the Export button, which is at the top right here, and select the format you'd like to use. There's Excel or .ics. .ics is a convenient format that allows you to import the Google Calendar calendar. I'm going to use Excel and click Export. And now if we open the file that we get from this, you'll see that it gives a simple view of what teams and athletes we'll be training and what dates, what activities. Now I'm going to go back to my app and close out of this and show you how to import sessions. To import sessions, click on the Import button, again at the top right, next to the Export button. And this allows you to import planned sessions or historic data. I'm going to do some planned sessions. Now just click on the template file, and this will download an Excel template for us, which we can open up and modify to import our training sessions. So I've got that open now. Enable editing if necessary. And you'll see it's auto-populated with the names of the athletes we had selected, right here. You can add more by name if necessary, but for simplicity's sake, I recommend going back to the previous screen, selecting new athletes, and then generating a new file. It's just much faster. Now simply fill in the data for this training session and copy it to whichever athletes you'd like. You can fill in separate data for separate athletes if you'd like. So here, right now it's defaulted to this session for this account. I'm going to change the duration to 45 minutes and set the plan difficulty to 6. Here you can also add in a comment just like in any other field. I'm not going to bother with it right now. And I'm going to change the date to the 29th. Now I'm going to copy this data to all of my athletes below. Perfect. Now when we import this file, it should import the data for all of these users. And again, you can go through and customize it by user if you'd like. We can make this one a 7 or this one a 4. Simply save, go back to the app, click Select File, and select the file that was generated and then modified by us. Once you've got that selected, simply click Import Sessions, and we'll see 16 sessions uploaded. That's 1 session per athlete. So everything worked perfectly. Now let's go back and take another look at the training calendar. Hovering over a session in our calendar reveals the start time, date, estimated length, activity, etc. It will also show you the number of athletes participating. If we click on the training session, we're taken to this screen. Here you have several options. You can export and import data from external devices using spreadsheets, which I'll detail in a moment. You can edit the session, which is just like creating it, except it's filled in with data. You just modify it and resave it, or you can delete it. Let's try importing some GPS data. Click on the Export button here, and open up the generated Excel template. Here we can see that the sheet generated currently has all zeros for the actual data, and is filled in by default the starting time and duration that we set, as well as the activity, date, and athlete names. The data is all zeros because none of the athletes have had information filled in yet. Enable editing if necessary, and fill in the mandatory data for each user. So I'm setting the perceived difficulty and enjoyment levels for the top 3 users. We can also fill in comments if we like, and fill in these fields as well. Once you've filled in as many of the athletes as you like, simply save, close this and go back to our app and click on the Import button. Click Select File and select the file you modified, and click Import Sessions. You'll see here 3 rows inserted. That's the 3 athletes we filled in, so that means everything worked perfectly. It also shows us 12 rows skipped to specify the 12 athlete names that we didn't add any data for. We can now click Close and Refresh, go back into our trainings, and you'll see that the checkboxes for these 3 athletes have changed to green from yellow, and now there's also actual data imported for their load, RPE, and comments. It's all visible right here. Now, to explain the checkboxes a little more, the color indicates whether the athlete has entered data for this training. If not, the box is yellow, like all of these athletes, but if they have, it's green, like these. As well, like I mentioned, you can see the athletes' comments and scores entered here beneath their names and next to their pictures. One of the best parts about this screen is the ability to enter training data from the coach account in a kiosk-like setting. While athletes can enter data on their own accounts, this screen is great for bringing up on something like a laptop or a tablet and having each athlete fill it in before leaving the training facility. Simply click the checkbox next to the athlete's name, and this will take you to the data entry screen. It's very quick and simple to record data. As you can see, the date, time, and duration have already been filled in, but they are editable. You can see here the duration is set in 5-minute intervals in case things didn't go quite as planned. Let's say this session was a little bit faster than we thought it would be, and it only took 35 minutes to complete the planned activities. As I noted, it is 5-minute intervals by default, but this can be changed to 1-minute intervals in the team settings, which I'll detail a bit later. Beyond that, the only data needed is the RPE difficulty, which again is on a scale of 0 to 10, and I'm going to set this one to moderate, that's a 4, and the enjoyment. The athlete can also leave comments for the coach to see, which is very, very useful. It's a great way for them to communicate through the app. If an athlete did not attend a session, simply click Missed Session. This will reduce the fields to comment only. This was not a missed session, however, so I'm going to uncheck that. And now click Save. Again, we see this new athlete's data has been filled in and their checkbox is made green. So now you've seen the core of session planning and data entry on the coach side. Let's see how to customize the training forms. Simply close out of the training session and the training calendar and select the options for the team you'd like to modify and click Team Settings. Here, expand the Training Forms field and you can modify several options. You can set the number of attachments an athlete is allowed to attach. We didn't see any on the form previously because it's currently set to 0, so I'm going to change it to 1. It's a maximum of 3. You can set the RPE difficulty from a list drop-down to a slider if you prefer, which I'm going to do so you can see what it looks like. And you can set the enjoyment from a list to a slider, or even hidden if you don't wish to collect data for enjoyment. I'm going to leave this one as is for now. You can also hide the planned RPE so that the athlete doesn't see it when viewing the training session ahead of time, and you can change the duration increments here, as I mentioned before, from 5 minutes to 1 minute if you prefer. I'm going to leave it at 5 though. Below these options, we have the ability to add our own custom forms, up to 20 of them, to the training forms. You can see I've already got a few here already, but they're all set to hidden. The ability to show or hide them is a great way to keep them off a form if you don't want to collect data for them for a while, but you may still want to in the future, so it's less permanent than actually deleting them. If you do want to delete it, simply click the large red X next to the form. Editing them is simple. Just change the data that's already listed here, such as the name or the show or hide property, the unit, and the comparison ratio, and then click Save down at the bottom. I'm actually going to add a new one. So again, scroll down to the bottom and click on the green plus. You'll see here our new form has come up empty. We just need to fill it in. I'm going to do hours awake before training. If we're doing, say, a 10 a.m. session, I get a good idea of when they woke up before that. I want this to be shown, which is the default, so I'm going to leave that as is, and I'm going to set my unit to hours. I'm going to set it to a daily z-score metric to be notified on a daily basis if scores are outside the norm, rather than the other option of setting a 7-day to 28-day ratio. There's also this key button. Clicking this will lock results to only be visible by the system's administrator. These aren't very confidential questions though in this case, so I'm going to leave that unlocked, and to save my changes, click Save. You'll see this pop-up box that asks you if you'd like to apply to all teams of the selected sport. This is exactly what it says. If you check this box off before clicking on Save, it will save your settings for not only your selected team, but all teams you manage of this sport. In this case, I'm going to uncheck it, so it only applies to this team, and click Save. Before we move on to the athlete side, I'd like to show you one more thing in the team settings. Let's expand the Activities field. As I mentioned earlier, if there isn't an activity that fits your needs, you can create your own, and this is where you go to do that. Simply expand the category that the activity will belong to. I'm going to do Strength, and click on the green plus sign to add a new activity. You'll see this pop up. Just fill in the activity name and click Add, or cancel if you've decided not to add one. Now that I've filled in my name, click Add. And we can see here the page refreshes, and if we go back into Activities and Strength, there is our new one. If you'd like to delete it, you can do so by clicking on the red X, or disable it. There are many non-deletable options. These are the system defaults. And you can disable those as well. To disable any activity, simply click on it so it's unchecked. You'll see it turns to this white color instead of gray, and click Save. I do want them all enabled though. Alright, now that you've got an in-depth familiarity with creating training sessions, recording them on the coach side, and customizing the training forms, let's look at recording training on the athlete side. Here I'm going to log out of this coach account and log in as an athlete. Recording training data for athletes is very simple. just go to the training tab here, and you'll see this athlete's training calendar from yesterday to 1 week from today by default. You can change this date range just like you did on the training calendar for coaches simply by selecting a new start and/or end date. I'm going to do 2 weeks from today again, and clicking the green reload button. We can see here now it's added new days with those sessions as well. As you can see, the training sessions are sorted by day, and I can only record sessions that are in the past, not sessions which are in the future. I can see some minimal details here, such as the start time, the duration, the activity category, and the RPE difficulty if you've made the decision not to hide it. And if I click on this to expand it, you can see that I've got the option to delete it. Let's enter some training data for one of the sessions I've got today. You can see here, just like on the coach side, there's a green check mark for the session that I've already recorded data for, and a yellow one for the one which I never recorded data for. Let's open up the one that's unrecorded. This is exactly like entering data on the coach side. You can also see that aside from changing this to a slider and setting this to one attachment available, we've also got the new tracking data I added in the settings page. It's right there. It's as simple as that. Now I'm just going to set the enjoyment and record the session by clicking save. Now we can see that in our training tab, the checkbox has changed to green to denote that we did in fact already enter data for this session, although it is editable just like it is on the coach side by clicking on the green checkbox and simply changing your answers. The last thing we need to see is recording unplanned sessions. You'll remember I mentioned these earlier on the calendar. Let's say I decided to train for a while and it wasn't scheduled by me or my coach. The only thing I need to do is click on the record session button, which is in the trainings tab right here, and fill it in just like any other training. Simply select the activity, which normally is set for us, but because this is unplanned it wasn't. I'm going to use this new one I defined under strength, general strength training. Select the date. I'm going to say that I did train today, so that's fine. Start time, duration, etc. At the end, click save. Again, it's just like other training forms. And now that we've submitted, if we go back to our trainings tab, we can see there's a new training for today with the data that I entered filled in here. It will also show up coach side in the training calendar. So that's it. Now you've got a detailed understanding of adding, editing, and customizing training sessions and forms in athlete monitoring for both coaches and athletes. Thank you for watching, and if you've got any questions at all, please direct them to support@athletemonitoring.com, where as always we will be happy to help.